Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning featuring myself, Tom Colohue. Our top story today is one that I never really thought I'd be covering. We have Cody Rhodes working to try and bring WrestleMania to the UK via the medium of the Manchester City Football Club. That is the route, that is the avenue, that is how this is apparently all going to come about. We're going to dive into that one as well as plenty more news as well. Our top story will be that one, but we're also going to talk Meltzer spoke and Rock said no. We're going to talk the ending of Wrestle Dream. We're going to talk the Motor City Machine Guns. We're going to talk the debut of Lashley, the return of Julia Hart. We're going to talk Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, and their new best friend Randy Orton and where that's going, as well as a little bit on Jimmy Jacobs, who's apparently the devil. Pardon me, couldn't even say that. Apparently the literal devil. Imagine that world. Apparently the literal devil. Wow, all the ills in the world. More on that story later. We are going to be starting with the WWE UK pay-per-view deal and how likely WrestleMania is. Be sure to jump in the chat, say hi, let me know you're watching. 45 people here, 17 likes. Let's get those thumbs ups coming and hit the chat rate out of the park so that we can get this one to as many people as we can. Can see so many of you already in the chat. Thank you very much for joining. We will be answering your questions. Let me know you're there and let me hear you as we talk. Our top story. The WWE and Manchester City Football Club in the UK recently announced a shared merchandising deal. The idea being that the UK site for Manchester City would create merchandise for the WWE, reducing cost to the customer of getting anything shipped over from the US. As such, the same would be the opposite. The WWE stores would make Manchester City merchandise, which would then reduce the cost to the consumer in the United States. This would help Manchester City grow in the United States and help the extra availability and growth in the UK. Particularly difficult because this also means they bypass the Brexit rules. Now, admittedly, they weren't necessarily making stuff in Europe, but it also means they don't have to worry too much about the trade laws because everything being made under the WWE banner in the UK was being made in the UK, a very successful use of that space. However, there's actually a lot more to it, and a lot more to it that hasn't been made particularly public. I've spoken about this a little bit on Martin's channel, The Mancunian Way, but I want to dive more into it as more information comes out. The UK deal between Manchester City and the WWE is not necessarily limited to merchandise. It is the beginning of a strategic sporting partnership that will be very far-reaching and will pop up in the figures when it comes to the end of year for Manchester City. A lucrative deal on both sides that also allows the UK to benefit from UK PLEs and also in general UK shows. The end game strategy, at least the intention from the WWE, is a show at the Etihad Stadium. For those of you who've been there, for those of you who've been nearby, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. And the WWE are confident that they can fill it. The idea would be that Manchester City would pay them for the pleasure, but they would take a significant cut of the gate. And before you know it, we're in a great position on both sides. Now, this has evolved in the last few days. Recently, WrestleVotes reported that Manchester and Birmingham were both in competition to host Elimination Chamber 2025. I started digging around this, and my word, there is a lot that was unearthed. Today, Cody Rhodes appeared at the Etihad Stadium and interviewed with the BBC. It is not just a merch deal. Cody Rhodes also said that within the next few years, next 5 years in particular, he wants to make WrestleMania happen. Now, the City of London is at this point in time trying to make it happen that the WWE would come to London and Wembley. AEW paid for the honour of working out of Wembley. The WWE are trying to convince the City of London, particularly Mayor Sadiq Khan, to pay them for the privilege. So far, it's gone okay, but Sadiq Khan doesn't fully understand why he should be paying WWE when he was paid by AEW. There's a couple of things to balance out there. Cody Rhodes appeared at the Etihad Stadium. There will be more filmed in that nature that comes out over the next few days on both sides. But there is a reason that the WWE are making sure that their champion appears in the Manchester City Stadium. There is an arena that is being prepared and owned by Manchester City, which Martin can likely tell you more about, which will mean that on site you have the perfect location for a UK PLE guaranteeing that the WWE every single year, as I've reported previously, will be hosting a UK exclusive PLE. That is the plan. That is the intention. Manchester City are the route to do so. They are swerving the City of London. They are swerving Sadiq Khan. They are swerving local councils. They are going straight to an independent company who can give them what they want. WWE, Manchester City, UK. I'm going to catch up with the chat at this point. We now have 72 people here, 31 likes. Let's keep them going as I catch up with the chat before we get to our next piece of news. Once again, a big welcome to everyone who's already joined us. Good to see so many familiar faces as always. Spider-Boss says after the end of WrestleDream, I'm pretty sure Darby Allin will be the one who saves AEW from Jon Moxley's group. Has gone a little bit WCW versus NWO. Also, congratulates the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Zack Sabre Jr. It's about damn time. Sean says hello, Tom. Michael says hi, Tom. Welcome, both of you. Welcome to the show. Always good to see you. And then there's a bit of talking amongst yourselves. Bliss Gamer says howdy, everyone. Hope we get everything Wyatt 6 related tonight, like a vignette or QR code. Yeah, we haven't seen them so far. Haven't seen them for a while. It's almost like they're having a bit of a reshuffle. Sean says, is Bryan Danielson really done wrestling? More on that shortly. No. Drive-by says, hi Tom, do you think Roman will appear at Crown Jewel? Personally, I don't. We're waiting for more guarantees on it, but personally, I don't think that. Jay says, just a comment. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you. Spider-Boss says, it's amazing to say it, but I miss Becky Lynch from the Raw Women's Division. The Raw Women's Division got stale since the Women's Division of Raw revolves around the Liv storyline. A lot of Raw Women's Division SEO there, mate. Aaron says, ooh, WrestleMania in the UK. That's what they're hoping for. But as I say, they're trying to swerve London and go instead via Manchester City and the private company. Capitalism, I tell you. Daniel says, hey, welcome, Daniel. And thank you for not spoiling Martin. Spider-Boss says, according to Fightful Select, Bryan Danielson asked to lose against Jon Moxley at WrestleDream. We have more news on that to come. Clarkus, welcome. Says, I'd imagine that's Clark US. Or Clarkus, we are Clarks. Believe. I love your channel. Keep up the great work. Heard about it from Wrestling Days, so shout out to him as well. I always like how there's always a strong contingent of Wrestling Days fans here who always make sure his name is said, and that just makes sure, absolutely makes sure that he is credited for what he's done for this channel. So thank you for mentioning. Martin says, as regards Manchester City, it's about to get bigger as well, with a new 5-star hotel, fan zone, with restaurants, bars, etc. Imagine that for a PLE. Dylan says, hi Tom. Welcome, Dylan. Spider-Boss says, WWE has a lot of money, but they don't want to pay for Wembley Stadium. Correct. They want to be paid for it. Also says, Ospreay versus Ricochet versus Takeshita was really good. Cal Fletcher turning on Ospreay surprised me. As it says, Tom, do you see the Bloodline screwing Jay out of the IC title? No, not as of yet anyway. One says, of how bad Tony Khan's Jacksonville Jaguars lost at Wembley Stadium versus the Chicago Bears, I'm confident my favourite team can beat them at Wembley as well. Watch the pig. Watch the pig. Sid says, I'm not happy that WrestleMania might be at the Manchester City Stadium, seeing as I'm a Man United fan. Hey, Liverpool fan. They know business. Martin says, Co-op Live Arena that WWE Live Show is in next week or this, I believe. 27,000 newly built arena is the Cooperative Live Arena. I did mention on Martin's show and his channel, where he does cover all things Manchester City, that the intention was for WWE Live shows out of that arena. And Martin can back me up on that one. Noob says, hello, Mr. Colohue. How are you doing today? Doing very well, thank you, Noob. Welcome to the show. And Wrestler Fan says, do you see The Rock being at the Royal Rumble? Tricky one. I would imagine he'll be at the Rumble, yes, but not in the Rumble. Brad says, hello all. Welcome, Brad. And Bailey says, from a travel perspective, how far is Manchester from London? Depends how you're getting there. On a train, it's about 2 hours. Dylan says, do you ever see a Clash of the Castle in Ireland? A lot of people have been saying Ireland is due a pay-per-view. That depends. This, after all, is the UK government trying to get more into the economy because they've lost so much for Brexit. There's so many layers to this. Ireland, I'm not sure whether they would pay. The Republic of Ireland, or Southern Ireland, as my fellow Northern Irishmen call it, is always a tricky one to work with because that involves a lot of work around the EU and work like that. They do believe it's more central to do shows in Paris and Berlin and the like. But Ireland is on the agenda ever since NXT UK takeover Dublin. Dan says evening. Evening, Dan. Good to see you. For those unaware, I am looking at putting together an interview for Dan of Wrestling Eve. Pro Wrestling Eve, right? Girls of Wrestling. I do think it's going to be an interesting one, and I do hope that many of you want to check that out, because it's not often we get the opportunity to talk to someone who's done as much as Dan has in wrestling, literally running a wrestling promotion, focusing on women's wrestling, but also focusing on a really unique style of wrestling that really is a throwback to how wrestling really genuinely started in the UK. It's quite interesting seeing the broad brushes and the interesting variety of painting that we've got in this particular one. And also in general, there's always something that just goes a little bit haywire, and it's always quite fun. Sean says WWE's been running Gunter versus Chad Gable at live events in the UK. Yep, Jey Uso has been working with Bron Breakker. Calvin says, what's up, Tom? I would die if they ever had WrestleMania in Tokyo. I hope not, because there is talk about it. China's still... They're trying to get a lot of money from China. China aren't really offering it to them. They believe it's likely. It's all very awkward. That says, big up, Tom. Do you think Darby is next for Moxley? I would suggest so. Noob says, is everyone getting the feeling they missed Becky Lynch and Asuka in the Raw Women's division? It's getting boring ever since the Liv and Rhea feud started. Yeah, personally, I think they're definitely missing them. Sean says, remember, Raw won't be live tonight. It was a taped show. It was indeed. Thank you for the reminder. And Dad says, honestly, big up. Appreciate you, Daz. Mine says, 1,000% true. Tom was bang on. Spider-Boss says, Mariah May is a star. She handled well the media questions at the Wrestle Dream media scrum. I have questions about that. You know me. When I say I have questions, it means I'm mad. I am represented by wrestling media, much as I represent wrestling media. You couldn't come up with one question? One question. If I ever had the chance to do that interview, I would do it justice. That's all I'm going to say. Irish says, my guy Tom, good to see you as always, and also watches the pig. Good to see you too, mate. Luke says, what year is WrestleMania coming to Manchester? Cody Rhodes wants it within the next 5. Cody Rhodes does not have the power to make it happen. Triple H wants it within the next 3. Martin, thank you very kindly. We did have a members only video released about the reaction that I had to Dave Meltzer and The Rock Little Spat. Martin was also generously sharing a donation on that one, so I want to say another thank you for that, Martin. Was going to give you a shout out once I'd finished going through this particular catch up, but you've made another donation now, so I kind of have to. Very generous. I'm very grateful. Thank you. Says, if anyone wants anything more on this and more proof, Tom spits nothing but facts. 2 months ago we spoke about this on my channel. Tom speaks only facts. You're very much appreciated, sir. Thank you for that. And yes, 2 months ago we did speak about exactly this. You invited me on and I was more than happy to share. Spider-Boss says, who owns a Latino heat trademark? WWE or Vicky Guerrero? At this point, I do believe Vicky owns it. I believe so. Cecil says, I need to see the Wyatt 6 tonight and some Gunter and Cody Rhodes tonight. You'll get your wish on the latter. I have SmackDown NXT beating Raw the last 3 weeks. Thoughts? I think SmackDown's been good since Roman came back. Genuinely has been. That said, everything going on with Cody and Randy, also quite fun. Clark says, hey Tom, I'm hearing a lot more noise recently about Alexa returning. Is there any heat to that, or is it just noise as usual? I've shared everything I can regarding Alexa Bliss. I've keeping you as up to date as I possibly can. What we are seeing is other people starting to catch up with what I've been reporting. Everything that I've seen reported has been something that I've already shared. Ray says, Motor City Machine Gun's going to be on SmackDown. More on that later, but yes, that is the plan. And Wrestler Fan said, do you think the Wyatt 6 will get a match at WrestleMania 41? I hope so. I'm not feeling so, given that they've not been on pay-per-view at all so far. Sean says, your thoughts on Adam Cole's return? It was a bit out of nowhere. Kind of enjoyed it. And Spider-Boss says, Maria May's been having random short rivalries since her rivalry with Toni Storm ended it all in. I think TK's waiting for Toni Storm's return to give a good storyline to Mariah. Then ask about that. Ask about that. Welcome, Wiggly. I'd imagine this show is right down your alley. Up your alley. Down your alley. I'd imagine you'll like this show. It's about Manchester City. Dylan says, when WWE goes to Netflix next year, would you see an option for us to be able to rewatch WrestleMania, SummerSlam and all the pay-per-views and Raw and SmackDown? That's the intention, yes. Everything will be rewatchable on Netflix immediately after it finishes. Ishi says, hello Tom, hope you're okay. Doing well, thank you Ishi, welcome to the show. Razal says, how long is this Jade and Bianca team going to last? Hope it ends soon, it's getting repetitive. Essentially, until one of them turns on the other. Kind of awkward. We have 39 likes and 88 people watching. One more can get us to 40. Keep that ball rolling. Calvin says, once Piper and Chelsea split, who will be the face? Piper is the more likely one. It is believed that Chelsea is a natural heel, I should say, and should never be turned. Believed by me, I believe that. She says, will we get anything Wyatt 6 tonight? Hard to say. There's plenty of stuff lined up. They're just not doing it at the moment. I still expect we'll see some teases, but it does look like they're just sort of... they're rethinking it a little bit. Just re-strategizing. Ash says, due to what I've seen as the spoilers tonight, the Wyatt 6 won't be there in person. Since it's tape, they could have planted a QR code. To be fair, I once went to a SmackDown in Manchester, and Bray Wyatt was there. He was not seen during the show. He was only in the dark segment, but there was a backstage segment where he attacked Daniel Bryan. So these things can happen, yes. As I said, Tom, I want to see Jimmy on Raw asking Jay for help, only for Jay to be against the idea. Joining Roman after everything he did to him, it will be cinema. We have been discussing that indeed, yes. Daz says, big up to Martin. Thank you as always for sharing. Dan says, I think the Mariah May scrum shows an example of some media people perhaps being more fans than actual media. AEW do have a penchant for this. They don't necessarily want to focus on trained media personnel. They want the bloggers. They want the people who create content on YouTube. They want people who are there to ask the top level stuff. There's also a certain lack of understanding in that particular crowd. If, for example, I'm in a media scrum, I'm recording all of it, and that footage belongs to me. I will then credit the people who ask the questions as in which I know them. However, that footage belongs to me. So, you, and this has happened to me before, you can't tell me to delete some of my footage from a video because it's a section where you asked a question. It's my footage. So there have been a few issues, shall we say, and AEW, I feel, does need to rethink their PR a little bit. Just get a few more experts in the room. Hell, get a few plants in the room. Make the wrestlers feel comfortable, because I can't imagine Mariah May came out of that feeling very good. Yeah, it wasn't great. Juan says, apparently Chris Statlander versus Mercedes Money is being planned for Full Gear, according to some teasers by Tony Khan. Also, according to TK, AEW's future is bright despite the low ticket sales and ratings. Yeah, they're making a lot of money. Well, it depends what you consider to be the key metrics, but yeah, money's kind of a big one. Sorry guys, just keeping up here. Sean says, who do you think the tag team Nick Aldis has for Los Garzas to face on SmackDown? I'd imagine it'll be mostly Machine Guns, more on that shortly. Spider-Ball says, after Bad Blood, what is next for Bayley? The moment, fading into the background a bit, unfortunately. Wiggly says, if your headline does become reality, I would be over the blue moon. Topical. Sean says, do you know why NXT has been moved off Peacock? Now you can't find it, but can still find NXT Level Up, because NXT has moved on to a new TV deal. So, Peacock no longer have the rights. Spider-Ball says, when Bianca and Jade break up, I think Jade has to be the heel. Ray says, if you could only watch one show, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, which show would you pick to watch? Probably SmackDown. The Bloodline storyline is very good. I really enjoy it. Bailey says, will Athena ever get a serious run on AEW, or is she just confined to Ring of Honor? At the moment, she's in Ring of Honor. I really hope that changes soon. Steve says, what does Netflix offer besides WWE programming upcoming? Seems like a weak network if there's nothing else live to watch. There will be more live to watch. WWE is one of the only things that's been announced, but it's not the only thing that's been brought together. We now have 94 people watching, 43 likes, 2 more to 45. Keep that ball rolling, guys. Wrestler fan says, is WWE in discussions with Stone Cold about appearance at WrestleMania 41, seeing as he has mentioned he's open to appear at WrestleMania 41. There has been some discussions, but typically they come to this a little later. There is not a current match planned for Steve Austin at WrestleMania. Cecil says, ordered my new Dom shirt today, Latino Cheat. Oh, that's genius. Marcel says, I'm at work, I'll listen to the show as podcast. Appreciate you, Marcel. And Calvin says, picture this, the SmackDown after Thanksgiving. Theory returns on Waller and destroys an Italian face like Randy destroyed Seth in 2014. Don't think people are going to care as much as they did when it was Randy Orton. Let's be honest. Next up, because 20 minutes in, I took too much time on that first one. Love your opinions on this. We spoke on Friday about Dave Meltzer stating that The Rock would not be at WrestleMania 41. Since then, The Rock has openly said no. He, would be. Because don't believe everything you read. Everyone I've been able to speak to still states that The Rock versus Cody Rhodes is what the WWE is currently working towards. There is, of course, an option for a triple threat, but it's not because of problems with The Rock and Cody Rhodes, and it's not because of any potential issues with The Rock's schedule. The Rock, to my knowledge, is available. Instead, Roman versus Solo is a little more up in the air because of the popularity of Jacob Fatu, and, well, social media hates the concept. I put the word out, Dave Meltzer then also put the word out. People did not react well. For now, The Rock versus Cody Rhodes is on the agenda, as is Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa. I can state with confidence what Meltzer said about The Rock not being at WrestleMania 41, at least for now, is not the plan. And it does disappoint me slightly when you see him stating afterwards, oh, if it's wrong, I'll find out. Well, you did find out. You were wrong. Not it's wrong. You were wrong. Because you did report it in a way that could potentially hurt the excitement for a show. Sometimes, maybe just don't. And Dave Meltzer, unfortunately, is increasingly in the area of maybe just don't. Because the good stuff is being overwhelmed by the bad stuff. The bad stuff, but of course, I mean the wrong stuff. Spadabel says, Roman saying no yeet as soon as fans began chanting yeet on SmackDown was fun. Well, he no yeet. This guy says, do you see The Rock wrestling before WrestleMania, possibly Netflix debut? I definitely see him wrestling before WrestleMania, though I do think it will either be Royal Rumble or on an actual Raw. That would be interesting. Or on a SmackDown, I should say. Spadabel says, Roman apologising with Jay and Sammy in order to fight the new bloodline will be cinema. I agree, I'm very excited for it. And we knew it was coming. We've discussed the Bloodline Civil War at length, and now The Rock has confirmed the branding of Bloodline Civil War. It's reassuring when I'm able to report something like a Bloodline Civil War 3 months ago. 3 months ago. And then watch as everything comes together around it. Wiggly says, any rumours who Cena's final opponent will be? I've not got anything on that. And also asks, is Cena getting title 17? No, he doesn't want it. Dylan says that any other pay-per-views this year, or is Survivor Series the last one? There is Crown Jewel, which is the next one, which I will not be covering, as you know. Harry says Dave just yaps and pulls out the classic will plans change. Didn't even do that this time. Suppose he will. I suppose what he's going to do is plans will change. Kengaz says, Tom, did you like the ending of Wrestle Dream? I didn't like it. What a dark way to end the show. More on that shortly. Aaron says, I'm a newer wrestling fan. Mainly started learning and following after WrestleMania. I've been hooked and fell in love. I wish I found it earlier. I used to live close to where AEW was in Jacksonville. Interesting. Welcome to the show. We like a variety of experiences here. Backward says, Meltzer makes me scratch my head sometimes. And Dylan says, what exactly does WWE have planned for the first Raw on Netflix? Since they said it's going to be a PLE-style Raw. Big matches, none of which I can really confirm right now. I would imagine we're going to get some element of, for example, Cody, Kevin Owens at that point. Hector says, I'm convinced Meltzer doesn't fact-check at this point. Says stuff because he thinks everyone will believe him just because he's Dave Meltzer and it's lame. I mentioned in the show on Friday, there is a pressure that comes with that sort of paywall and that sort of regular show. I avoid that pressure by not always doing spoiler warning. Every now and then, if I've not got news, I don't do a show. If I've not got a lot of news, I'll do a show with 2 or 3 pieces of news. You can all remember times when that has happened, when the show's been only half an hour. Those things do happen. That avoids the pressure to keep reporting news. When I was working at Sportskeeda, they kept pushing me to just report more news, report more news, report more news. I didn't have any. So there was nothing I could report. That made it very awkward when I lost my job during the pandemic. I was made redundant because there was no work for me. It was a pandemic. And my source of income became, oh, you need to write more news. I don't have any. There is a pressure that comes with that. That comes with the paywalls. That comes with WrestleVotes and the new radio station. And that comes with being popular. Zero News fell for that one pretty hard. I look at the reports about the Lucha Bros and the Motor City Machine Guns. I think that pressure got to them. We'll see how it goes from there, but I think Dave Meltzer's feeling that. Calvin says WWE needs a December pay-per-view. Seriously. Ray says, how excited for you for WWE to be on Netflix in the UK? Very, very excited. I'm just going to always have it just on the TV right there. Watch parties are going to be great. Absolutely great. Billy says, will Raw on Netflix still be PG-13? Nope. Joseph says, hey, Tom and all of us. My friend, welcome, Joe. Good to see you, mate. And Dylan says, are you saying that Roman Solo might not happen at Mania because they don't care for Solo or because Jacob is just more popular? Both. Cecil says to me, Meltzer, when he sticks to the history of wrestling, is good, but news reporter, no. And Aaron says, I mean, we have Saturday Night Main Event. Wouldn't that be PLE equivalent? Not really. I won't go as far as a PLE, but certainly they're going to try and sell it as well. Wiggly says, with regards to the Saudi deal, how many more years does that need to run, and are WWE going to renew it? Only a couple more now. I believe it goes to 2026. And Nick Khan wants to renew it. Triple H does not. Spider-Man says, I thought Liv's title reign would be good. Then Liv's title reign became all about Dominic. Liv sometimes sounds cringe. Sean says, do you see any big returns on the Raw after Netflix like Becky, Alexa, John Cena? Yes. John says, how long will AJ Styles be out? Not too long, I'd imagine only a couple of months. Spider-Boss says, first Raw on Netflix, I see Drew cursing the Raw roster. Would imagine so. Thank you, Sid. Appreciate it. One says, next thing we know, Dave Meltzer will tell us he knows he'll be elected as the new president on November 5th. Man apparently knows it all. Apparently knows it all. To be fair, it's kind of sad because for a while he was good at this. For a long time, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was the authority. But nowadays, you have to look back and wonder, was he? Or did we just live in an age where we couldn't fact check it? Wrestler fan says, is Goldberg versus Gunther going to happen? Could we get Goldberg versus Bron Breakker possibly at WrestleMania? Could. Little bit on Wrestle Dream. Bryan Danielson is being written into a much more reduced role, but he will still wrestle a fairly active roster. His main focus instead will be on the backstage and creative side, where he's been increasingly influential, starting when he was in WWE after his return, in fact starting when he was a general manager under Shane McMahon. Everything since the all-in win over Swerve that made him champion has been scripted by Danielson himself, including the new version of Jon Moxley and his accompaniments. The story from here, the World Championship story, the Jon Moxley story, everything from here is Bryan Danielson's baby as he takes over duties as a very high up level writer in the creative team. He's probably the closest thing we can get now to the executive vice president that replaced Cody Rhodes. He is the authority in the locker room. He will be remaining so. But it wasn't just a case that he was asking to lose to Moxley. He wrote the entire thing. Spider-Boss says, I wonder who has a bigger ego. Both guys never admit when they get their news wrong. I would say, as with wrestling, when it comes to journalism, you do need a bit of an ego. Sad as it is, I do have to fight to be recognised for the reports that I make. Like this Manchester City report, I feel really good about it. I feel like I got the news out there. Nobody's going to care because I don't have enough ego. If I had a bigger ego, I'd probably be more successful. The ones who explode onto the scene on Twitter are also the same ones who say, look, I did this. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. I'm not that guy. I'm just not that guy. It's why I'm always so grateful when so many of you are out there singing my praises, getting the word out, sharing it. That's why I'm so grateful to Wrestling Days, for example. So I'm so glad I've got 102 viewers in here, 47 likes, 3 more to 50. Keep it going. And for me, because I don't care to self-celebrate, it means the world to me when you guys put the word out. I just want to say thank you for that. The Motor City Machine Guns have been spotted at the WWE Performance Center working on their planned entrance with officials there for their main roster WWE debut. Contrary to rumours that have emerged in the last few weeks, the Motor City Machine Guns are not taking the spot originally planned for the Lucha Brothers. Plans had actually not been finalised for the Lucha Brothers, the Motor City Machine Guns, while they were not actually originally planned to debut in NXT. That report unfortunately was not correct. They were always expected to debut straight onto the main roster. It is part of the contract deal that was offered to them. They are ready to dive in, and Triple H is planning to make a big deal out of these two as he prepares to make a big statement to the tag team divisions on both Raw and SmackDown that from here on out, he's going to take you seriously. I give it 2 months. 2 months. That's what I give it. 2 months. Just catching up here, guys. Iris says there's still 6 masks we haven't seen yet, you think? Yes. Absolutely, yes. No worries, Steve. What's the deal with Man City Report anyway? Is Erling Haaland wrestling John Cena at WrestleMania? Steve, it's a top story. Just zip on back. You'll find all the details there. It's a very lucrative deal for both Man City and for the WWE. And it's one of many ways that Man City have found to generate a lot of additional income in a short space of time to basically ensure that they don't fall foul of any fair play rules. It's just very clever business, and I can't fault it. Dan says 100% same on ego, and you're 100% right. Appreciate that from someone who knows full well you do have to have an element of ego. You do have to have the ability to self-celebrate, and if you're not capable of that, you do have to have the right people around you. I remember a video I made long time ago. I think it was on Mercedes Money and the Wrestling Media that Dan, you and the Wrestling Eve account tweeted out. Made a huge difference, really shot up what I was doing at the channel at that time, and I'm very, very grateful for that. There's a reason that every now and then I'll make a point of sharing your work as well, of putting out there in a way that doesn't sort of overload the audience, but also just lets them know, hey, there's good stuff here, go check it out. And certainly I was doing that when you very graciously invited me to come and check out what you were doing as well. So these things do require a lot of ego. You can't get into wrestling without it. Joe Hendry, huge ego. Otherwise he wouldn't be what he is today. Imagine the ego required to make and sing that song and take it seriously. I mean, credit where it's due. Cecil says, my first spoiler warning was about the Wyatt 6. Sent over by days. You think all that you have that day is still in the works? Are they rethinking things? Example, watching the pig, Rowan going away, etc. To my knowledge, it is still in the works. They are doing a bit of a reshuffle at the moment. The Wyatt 6 have not landed as they were hoping. Bo Dallas is said to be pitching things that Triple H isn't necessarily comfortable with. Unfortunately, this is sort of what started with Bray Wyatt before Bray Wyatt unfortunately wasn't able to continue because of the physical condition he was struggling with at the time. I do believe they will find their rhythm, but it is a case of waiting for people to be in the right lineup and the right setup. It is a marathon, not a sprint, to quote Triple H. This will be next when it comes to the Bloodline was, for the longest time, the big wrestling storyline, particularly in the WWE. The Wyatt 6 is expected to replace it. There are many phases, and to quote Paul Heyman, we're not even out of the first inning yet. Have patience and have faith. Ari says, any news on the theme song for Motor City Machine Guns? I've not been told what it is. Not been told. Sid, as regards wrestling new to YouTubers, Wrestling Days, unfortunately, does a lot of stuff that I can't necessarily watch. So he does a 5-hour Raw show, for example. I don't have time to watch that back, and I'm not awake for it live. So there is a bit there that doesn't quite work. I like his Unseen series, though. I quite like that. YouTuber I watch most? Smosh. I've learned SEO and hosting channels through Smosh. You follow the Smosh meta, you're pretty much seamless. Calvin says, I know I ask this a lot, but do you truly see Austin Theory getting over as a babyface? I think they'll give him a damn good shot. Dad says, what's Cody doing on Raw tonight? It rhymes with the sock. Although I take it back. They are indeed said there will be a 2K a WWE 2K24 Bray Wyatt edition. Calvin says Cody will be in a face segment with Gunter tonight. One says according to SRS, the enemy, he reported that Tony Khan didn't like Jimmy Jacobs' creative direction, also disputed over storylines which led to his departure. More on that shortly. Calvin says if you heard Sigma will be working on Austin Theory's new entrance theme. I had not. One sec, just making sure I'm all caught up. Wiggly says the fact you mentioned my two loves WWE and Man City in the same breath, I'm delighted. Spiderball says Kyle Fletcher's heel turn got more attention than Takeshita's title win. This guy says with Daniel Garcia signing a new contract, which wrestler from AEW has a contract coming up next that hasn't been reported yet? That's a difficult question to answer. I think that hasn't been reported yet. It's probably Mike Bennett. That's the obvious one. Spiderball says last week on Raw there were teases of Y6 going after The Miz. There were lots of teases. We're still waiting for people to be in the right lineup. Sean says with his promo last week was Punk hinting at taking time off. He wasn't hinting. He was openly saying. Wiggly says Cody was in the UK. He was on BBC News this morning. He was. He was also at the Etihad, mate. I don't know if you've missed that. Ash says, will Bo ever get feared again as his entrance song again? No, because at the moment he's not Bo Dallas. He is Uncle Howdy. Uncle as Howdiest. Lashley. 107 viewers, 53 likes, 2 more to 55. Keep that ball rolling, guys. Lashley. Quick question for everyone who watched WrestleDream. Did you expect Lashley to turn up at WrestleDream? Personally, I did. I've been able to report that he was signed to an AEW contract. I was able to report that first. See, I'm trying to ego there. Trying to slide that ego in. Trying to slide it in. I was able to report that first. I did not report that he was going to be appearing at WrestleDream. It's been reported that he wasn't there. I was told that he was, so that's a bit of a disputing information I'm hearing. To my knowledge, he's still due to debut in AEW shortly. Wasn't booked for WrestleDream and isn't expected to go straight into the main event. He is, however, said to be the first talent on new TV deal money, meaning that he's got one hell of a deal. MVP, Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley all negotiated as a group and they will be working together. Bobby Lashley will be a key figure going forward. He's been promised a lot of big matches and big opponents. I do expect we'll see Bobby Lashley, John Moxley in relatively short order, though Bobby Lashley at the moment is expected to be a face upon his debut. Also returning shortly is Julia Hart. I reported that a few weeks ago, but this news has now started to make the rounds behind the paywalls of bigger sites, and as such it's starting to become more common knowledge. I just wanted to point out, Julia Hart returning shortly. She will be facing off in short order with Mercedes Money for the TBS Championship. So yes, we did have a few people. Ash says absolutely not. Brad says absolutely. Daz says yes, I did. Backwards expected it. Erin did as well. David said yes, and I think after the segment of MVP and Leo Rush, I think we're seeing him on Dynamite. One said I didn't think he would show up, but a lot of people thought Shane McMahon would show up, which is laughable. A lot of people are really all in on Shane McMahon. Do you see what I did there? Do you see? I hope so. Michael did as well. Spider-Man says I thought Lashley would appear at WrestleDream, spearing Swerve, and nothing happened. There will be Lashley in your life. Very short order. Couple of things left to cover. Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano and Randy Orton have been working together in 6-man tag team matches at live shows. There is a reason for this. Randy Orton has long been a fan of both men, and he approached Triple H with the idea of working with them in a similar way to back in the day with FTRKO. This hopefully extends his career, allowing him to, while working less dates, also work less time per match. He tags in, he gets his stuff in, he hits an RKO, he picks up the win. That is typically what he does. He works about a minute per night, which, considering his age and his injury history, is a very good thing. Now, this goes further. Long term, there's a couple of different ideas that Orton is said to have been pitching. The idea seems to be that when Randy Orton does eventually turn on Cody Rhodes, he would take both Ciampa and Gargano with him to keep them fresh and enhance the tag division. There's also an option that they start a Tommaso Ciampa versus Randy Orton feud, with Randy Orton injuring Johnny Gargano, eliminating him briefly, allowing him to work with Tommaso Ciampa, then potentially Cody Rhodes, and then Johnny Gargano shortly afterwards. Both men Tommaso Ciampa and Randy Orton are said to have been trying to make a feud between them happen for nearly a decade. That is commitment to the highest order from both men. Spider-Boss says, I'm ready for Mercedes versus Chris Statlander. I think we get Camille versus Chris Statlander first. And also says, I think one of these days Ciampa will hit an RKO on Randy. Ciampa trying an RKO on Randy is fun to watch. That has indeed been discussed, and it's one of the reasons Ciampa is practicing. Ciampa. Hector says, Tom, were you able to catch any clips from the Jay White Hangman match? Glad to see Jay back, and it's good to see him go over. Hopefully they can properly build him. Maybe he can take on Okada. I did catch a few. Yes, as you guys know, big Jay White fan. Also a big Zack Sabre Jr. fan. He won the big one this week, and that is a hell of a moment to celebrate. One says, according to Leo Rush himself, he and Tony Khan buried the hatchet. TK admitted he was wrong for the tweet on Big Swole. Pardon me. He is now re-signed with AEW. Tony Khan did say that I'm not aware of what he did publicly. Big Swole has not forgiven him. Aaron says DIY becomes some of my favourites. Ciampa versus Orton sounds like it would be very fun. Sean says Javon Evans messed up an RKO spot against Randy during their match on NXT. After the match, Javon apologised. Randy said it's all good and raised his arm. Class act by Randy. To be clear, nobody blamed Javon. Nobody. Randy Orton would have punched anyone who tried to. They rehearsed it. It worked brilliantly. On the day, it wasn't perfect. And it had to be. It had to be absolutely perfect. The slightest thing went wrong, we got what we got instead. They took a risk, it didn't pay off. Doesn't matter. They found a way to make it work. Honestly, I give them credit. Alex says, sorry for being late. What AEW wrestlers are WWE interested in signing for 2025? I've actually released a video on that one fairly recently. I'm just going to go through my spoiler warnings because I did cover this not long ago. Yeah, 20th of September. The thumbnail says WWE's Most Wanted. Check that out and it'll tell you everything you want to know. Dan says Jay White and Hangman was excellent. I mean, the names alone should tell you everything you need to know. I'm a huge Jay White fan. Alex says, is WWE interested in Toni Storm when her contract is up or when his contract is expiring? As regards Toni Storm, to my knowledge, she's very happy with AEW. That's all I've been told, and honestly, that's all I really need to know. Finally, Jimmy Jacobs. Jimmy Jacobs is the new scapegoat for AEW, but not for genuine reasons. Despite a list of evils which was circulated, most of which was patently false, a vast collection of them were blatantly untrue, particularly his knowledge, or lack thereof apparently, of Kazuchika Okada and his work with Chris Jericho. To just clear up a lot of this, Jacobs is accused of being the mastermind behind the Learning Tree concept, but this was in every way Jericho himself. Chris Jericho essentially has creative control over his gimmick, his character, and whatever he wants. He comes up with these things. Jacobs has also been accused of being a prominent leaker during his time in the WWE orbit, which is one of the reasons that he left WWE way back when. Tony Khan isn't said to have ever fully trusted him, and they butted heads a number of times because of this. And with the new creative team installed that I've been reporting on for the last few months, there was less space for Jacobs. That opportunity led him to become a little more extreme in some of the storylines he was pitching, and it is believed that they were no longer a good fit. As such, they parted ways on good terms, though not the best of terms as it could have been. Nobody in AEW blames Jimmy Jacobs. Apparently a lot of people outside of it think they should. John said, is there any interest from WWE, Maria and Mike Kanellis when their contract expires? There's a little interest. The money on offer would likely be very small. Spider-Boss says, AEW media scrums haven't been good lately. First, a journalist asking Mercedes about her personal life. Now some journalists not having one question for Mariah May is disappointing. They did eventually get one question out, just to be clear on that. But wow. And yes, I definitely use that as a short. Because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Dylan says, when do you see CJ losing the Intercontinental Championship? I'd imagine around Royal Rumble time. Calvin says, do you see more issues with the New Day tonight? Yep, I'd imagine they'll keep that one going. Last thing I really want to cover is as regards the growth of this channel, because it continues to do so. Tonight we've hit 7,572 subscribers, a truly phenomenal number. A short that I uploaded an hour and 44 minutes ago has already had 563 views. We also, of course, have shows like this, which has already hit 260 views as well. Things are going extremely well for the Tom Colohue channel. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's diving in on everything we're doing. I'm trying to get back into the interview game, trying to feel my way back into it to see if there's interest out there in generating news that might help people find what we're doing here. I'm interested in making that happen. I'm practicing with a few friends, see if I can get the questions right for them. And also I'm reaching out to people that I'm genuinely interested in interviewing. I mentioned Dan earlier. We know each other quite well by this point. I want to talk about the process. I want to talk about the online presence. I want to talk about the difficulties you face in the modern wrestling. I want to talk about these things. And I want to get that word out there. So I'm starting to get back into that world a little. But honestly, it's one of those. If the big sites don't pick it up, I end up not getting that many views. So I'll be endeavoring as best I can to get the word out there. It starts with you guys. So if you're not interested in things that I'm doing, let me know. Drop a comment, just say something to let me know that I'm going down a path that you don't really want to follow. Because I do this all so that you guys enjoy what we do here. If you don't enjoy it, why would I do it? Landon says hi. Welcome, Landon. You unfortunately have come just at the end of the show. We are wrapping up now because we've been live for 46 minutes. We have peaked at 111 viewers and we've said everything we need to say. I'm going to wrap up. We will see you again on Friday. There will, of course, be a PLE Wednesday coming in 2 days, so check that out. Until then, a huge thank you to all of you. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.